The Vampire Diadems, Chapter 1, 1474. These diadems hold the fate of your life within them. Do not misplace them, nor hand them to anyone else, not even each other. Who's that the one in the clear box for? Marco Calby asks, taking the diadem she's given him carefully in hand. For show, Marco. If any creature that is not human touches it, we die almost immediately. That diadem is called reality, and it was made by a human that hated non-human creatures. No one alive knows where he went afterwards, or what he looks like. We only know his sex and purpose. Ridiculous, how humans can be, Espel says quietly and aggressively as he looks at his own diadem handed to him. Espel, you have the strongest of them all, besides my own. Yours is power and immortality, the queen says as she whispers in interest at saying what the diadem is, close to him. Gaultier, yours is time and pain. You control both. She adds as she looks at Gaultier's with a tone of flirtatious interest still. Marco, yours is greed and luck. You can easily hunt with it, since I know you do struggle, she says, moving on to Marco. Then finally to Ashton. Yours, my love, is the diadem of 3 very important things. Corruption, agony, and release. You can cause someone to be corrupted and get out of corruption. You can give them agony or release them from agony, and you can release them from a spell. Any spell, my love. Release. You have not the strongest, but the most useful of them all, she says, holding her hand on his chest and whispering in his ear flirtatiously. She leans on to kiss his lips, but she stops with a smile of contentment. What do we do with these? Gaultier asks, looking at the queen. Gaultier, all you do is keep them. Keep them from harm. Use them when you need to. They're special. Very special, the queen says, walking away from the group as Ashton is standing there staring with wide eyes. She just teased you? I think you should go after her. She seemed interested, Marco says after he teleports to a couch in the building, sitting on it. Ashton nods and goes to the bedroom where the queen had walked away from. What's your diadem, madam? He asks. Lust, and it gives the one that holds it an inescapable, alluring aroma. I think you fell for it, Ashton, my love. She goes over to him and looks up at him. Ashton was speechless as she touches his chest lightly with her hand, and she laughs a bit quietly. You're supposed to fall for it, she says, moving her hand up as she cups his cheek, leaning up to kiss him. He kisses back immediately. Gaultier sits beside Marco as Espel was standing in front of them, looking around the building. Why would she trust us with these diadems in the first place? Gaultier asks. She just does. Why so surprised? Espel says, looking back at Gaultier. We can never be trusted with much, and she trusts us with these? Gaultier says. Ugh! Gaultier, stop your dramatic thoughts about, we can't be trusted. It's getting all on my nerves, Marco says after a groan of annoyance. But we never were, Gaultier says. Marco rolls his eyes and looks away. Espel starts laughing a bit quietly and slightly evilly. Don't you guys get it? This is a test. She wants to see who lasts the longest so we could be trusted better. A test, huh? Marco questions with a cocked brow and an amused smirk. Well, I'm going to definitely pass it where all the rest of you fail, he adds. Enough with your ego, Marco. It won't help you with this test, Espel says after teleporting in front of him, leaning on the couch above Marco with their faces close. What makes you say that, Espel? Marco asked, still with a look of amusement and a smirk. There's a reason she gave you that greed diadem, Marco. That's what I'm saying. Espel answers, and he gets closer to Marco. Marco loses his smirk as he looks cockily confused. He leans back into the chair a bit. You're saying... Your greed will cause you to lose, Espel says, smirking. But you don't care, because you don't believe me. You'll see me a liar to cause you to fear this test, but I'm not lying. I never lie of what happens. He goes to Marco's ear and whispers, because I see it. Then he backs away, teleporting to the other side of the room to look at the diadem of reality. Marco had gasped at the whisper. He paused with widened eyes, and he looks at Gaultier, who just shrugs. A man bursts through the door. Where is the Queen of the Damned? He asks, sounding angry. Marco and Gaultier dive behind the couch, while Espel stands there calmly. Why do you ask for the Queen of the Damned, Marius? He asks, turning around with a smirk on his face. I have questions for her. The man, who's apparently named Marius, said as he backs down slightly. He knows this man? Marco asks Gaultier quietly. The Queen is occupied, Marius. You'll have to come back. Espel starts and he teleports to be in front of Marius. Never. Or you'll have to answer to me. I'm sure you don't want that now, do you? He laughs quietly and evilly. You don't scare me, Espel. Yep, they know each other. Gaultier finally answers quietly to Marco. Oh, but I can. Espel says, grabbing Marius by the neck with his nails sinking into it. Marius gasps in fear as he starts to breathe slightly heavier. You are nothing but a vampire filled with fear and jealousy, Marius. You'll never be anything else. He says in Marius's ear with a soft but low, evil tone. He lets go of Marius's throat, making him fall to the ground. Marius, on the ground, looks up at Espel with fear in his eyes. Then he got up and ran away. Marco and Gaultier popped their heads up, searching around like they were hoping Marius was gone. Marco then laughs a bit. Whoa, Espel, that was a masterpiece! Can you teach me how to be that intimidating? He asks. Gaultier shook his head as he follows Marco like, why am I following him? And Espel looks at the two. There is no teaching another how to be intimidating. The other has to be ready and practice on their own after being intimidated. He says, looking away from them and beginning to walk away. Wait, Espel! Marco calls, following. What is it, Marco? Espel asks with a tone of annoyance in his voice. Never mind, Marco says, getting intimidated enough to back down and stop following Espel. So Espel continued onwards without another word. He's extremely intimidating. Don't know why it doesn't harm me, Gaultier says. Oh, shut up, Gaultier! Marco snaps, and Gaultier just shrugs. Just saying. You know what? Good night, Gaultier. I'll see you when we all wake, Marco says, going to his room to sleep in his coffin. Okay. Good night, then, Gaultier says, awkwardly, with a monotone sound to his voice as he leaves in the opposite direction to go to his room with his coffin. Gaultier looks around the room. Nice bed. Shame I cannot sleep in it. I can only see it as a decoration that can be used for getting blood. But nah, I get blood another way that doesn't have anything to do with messing around with the human, he says to himself. I can just relax on it. It's quite comfortable, he adds, going to the bed and sitting on it, taking up a book and that is on his nightstand, beginning to read it. He slowly falls asleep with it, and he lays under the covers of the bed, with the book falling to the floor as he went into a deep slumber. Gaultier! Marco calls from outside his door. He knocks on it. Gaultier! He calls again. He listens in the door for an answer, but he doesn't hear one, so he just walks in. "Of course you're still sleeping," he says as he sees Gaultier, whose head is out the blankets. "And why are you not sleeping in your coffin? Don't you know you could die if the sun peeks through the curtains enough?" Marco asks, getting to him and shaking him. Gaultier sleeps on, and Marco rolls his eyes. He moves Gaultier's face and raises his hand to slap it. Once he does, he causes Gaultier to wake up. No startle, just naturally like he was used to it. "Wow, Gaultier, you didn't even flinch to my hand slapping you. You just woke up like that was natural." Gaultier looks up at Marco and nods. "Well, Marco, I was woken up with a slap across my face since before I was turned, so I just got used to it. I don't know," he says, sitting up and yawning as he stretches. "Huh. Cool that you have no reaction to it. That shows that you are tough." Gaultier scoffs in amusement. "Yeah," he says, slightly sarcastically. No, I'm being honest," Marco says, getting slightly defensive. Gaultier looks over at Marco with a cocked brow. "Is that so?" he asks. "Yes," Marco says, looking down and away from Gaultier's gaze with slightly pink cheeks. He was embarrassed that what he said can be taken as a compliment of interest. "Don't give me that look, you crybaby bitch," he mutters shyly. "Thanks," Gaultier says with a small smile, laughing a bit. "That is very kind of you to say," he adds with a tone of slight amusement. "Don't think that I am interested in you or anything. I just wanted to say something to make you not be that miserable today." Marco gets very defensive as Gaultier laughs a bit more lightly. "You're adorable." He gets up to get his outfit fixed. "You slept in that! Change your damn clothes!" Marco says, running to get Gaultier some new clothes, handing him them. Once Gaultier changes his clothes, Marco goes to the doorway of his room. "Come on, Marco. Why like this all of a sudden?" Gaultier asks, his voice going monotone again. I don't know," Marco says. "Maybe I need to go hunting?" he questions. "Well, see you around then. I'll be here. Aren't you hungry?" "No, not yet." "All right," Marco says, leaving out to get a meal before the sun comes fully up.